Hello, everybody, and welcome to the California Jumpstart Coalition podcast. I am Chase Peckham. I am the Director of Community Outreach and Education at the San Diego Financial Literacy Center, a division of Debt Wave Credit Counseling here in San Diego, California. I am extremely honored to have been a board member of the California Jumpstart Coalition for over 3 years, and to this point, still serving in any capacity that I possibly can. I am your host, and today we are going to have this episode serve as an evergreen introduction to the California Jumpstart for educators, partners, and potential board or committee members. The episode will inform listeners about the organization's mission, leadership structure, and the vital work of each committee. Now, a little bit about the California Jumpstart mission. It's to further the personal financial knowledge among California students by empowering our partners, educators, and communities to implement financial education in the classroom. And really, what we're here to do is to make you interested in being a part of this vital organization, an organization that has been around for so many years. And I'd like to introduce Tina Lozano, Andrea Ferrero-Haggerty, and Abby Ulm, 3 current board members that are crucial and important to explain and help us go through this entire process of what the California Jumpstart Coalition is all about. And I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for being here today.
Glad to be here.
All right. So as we're all sitting here, we're all in different places. We're here to discuss what we do. And I think at this current point, Tina, you are the current chairman of the board. Not always going to be that way, we know. But give us a little background first on yourself, a little icebreaker. What do we need to know about Tina?
All right. Glad to be here, Chase. Thanks for hosting this for us today. I am the executive director of the Richard Miles Johnson Foundation. That's the state credit union foundation for California and Nevada. And we provide financial resources to credit unions so they can help deliver financial education in their communities. And icebreaker, something about myself. I'm a bit of I'll call it an urban farmer. I have a huge vegetable garden that is my entire front yard and backyard at my house. So that's my little interesting thing about me.
All right. Then we have Andrea. Andrea, you've been, and well, as most of you have been guests on my Life is Life podcast. Andrea, what you and I do is very similar in a lot of ways when it comes to educating youth and families in financial literacy. But give us a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I've been in financial education for close to 20 years. And a little bit about me, I am the co-founder and executive director of Pockets Change. We definitely share that mission of amplifying financial conversations and making sure that no student, parent, or teacher feels alone in their financial journey. And we do this work with Pockets Change nationally, and it's through hip hop arts. So really bringing creative arts and neuroscience as a way to decompress the emotions around money. And I've been a part of the Jumpstart Coalition as a board member for almost 7.5 years now. It goes by fast because we are a fun group and we want you all to know about how to get into that. And a little fun fact about me, I've been an educator for over 20 years. And I first found out about California Jumpstart because a teacher friend invited me to a Financial Foundations for Educators workshop that was happening back in the day in LA. And I got to meet some board members there and go through that as a learner. And so I'm so excited just to share this work with y'all and to talk about how we can make change together.
Abby, you had time to plan this out a little bit. There were 2 people in front of you, so this one's got to be good.
I am a programs director for Rise Credit Union, which has a social impact business model. And so we are always looking for new and innovative ways to help and financially empower underserved individuals in the greater Los Angeles area and Southern California in many different ways. So we're a community development financial institution, and so we receive grant funding to do that. And I've had the privilege for the last 20 years of running a nonprofit that Rise Credit Union founded called the Center for Financial Empowerment. And that organization We partner with high schools and community organizations to provide financial education and assistance programs for underserved youth.
Abby, I've got to tell you, I'm so jealous of your foundation's name. Empowerment is such a better word than financial literacy. And I think that we all have strong feelings about that, which we will cover as we go on through this a little bit. Though, how did you guys get involved with the California Jumpstart Coalition? Abby, I'll start with you. What was it that led you to this organization?
I'll be honest, I was a colleague of Tina Lozano through our credit union affiliations. And Tina was the one that reached out and said, hey, I'm part of this organization and I think this would be a good fit for you. And so I learned more about it. And as soon as I found that California Jumpstart had a big part in advocating for financial education for youth in the state of California, and we have so long needed that piece, so I could have an even bigger impact than I currently was in my role in my job, I was ready to be on board and I'm happy to have done that.
And Andrea, how did you get involved and introduced to the organization?
So I was on the newsletter as a K through 12 teacher. I've taught across the grades over the years. And so I was still in the classroom when I got that Jumpstart newsletter about the FFE happening in LA. Teacher friend got me signed up, went and had an amazing time. And then a few years later, in that same newsletter, there was a quick little call out saying, hey, we're looking for new board members. And so I reached out and shared a little bit about myself. And very similar to Abby, I wanted to have a deeper impact. And I think that's really the power of the coalition. And shout out to Tina. She went out to lunch with me and shared more about what that looked like to be the board member and how I could be a part of this work. And it really it shared this broader vision. And I think that's what inspires me and keeps me excited each time we come together as a board. It's our individual actions then take on this collective impact. And we're able to share our resources, our events, and really take action to help educators all across the state together.
That is amazing. And Tina, you obviously couldn't take yourself out to lunch and introduce yourself to the organization, which seems to be a pretty large conduit here to many of us board members. What brought you into the organization?
When I started my job at the RMJ Foundation, a colleague of mine who was at the California Credit Union League was a board member for California Jumpstart. And as I began to get more involved in the financial education part of what I do, it made sense. So back in the day, Rita Fillingain, shout out to her, brought me on, and eventually I replaced her on the board, being able to have that kind of really hands-on financial education work that I do really fit in well with the coalition and all of the other coalition partners.
That's a pretty good segue. And I think that you are the perfect person to give us a history of the coalition itself. Why did it get started? And then how has it evolved since you've been there, and where do we currently stand?
The National Jumpstart Coalition was founded in the mid-90s. I think it was 1995, and came together to create a coalition of those folks who were interested in financial education, specifically for youth, and making sure that students were given an opportunity to learn financial education while they're in school. And at that time, it was intended to just be kind of a national organization. And I am proud to say that California was the first statewide coalition that was created long before any of our time, but a group of some CPAs and a few other folks got together and thought what the National Jumpstart Coalition is doing is fantastic, and let's do something more on a local level here just in the state of California. And so California became the first coalition, state coalition. And now I believe there's a state coalition in every state across the country. Just a month or two ago, I was able to go to the National State Leaders Conference, where all of those of us who are chairing our individual state coalitions got to get together and share resources and success stories and ask for help and all of those kind of fun things. So it really is a great opportunity to spend time with people who are doing similar work, that have similar goals, and really wanting to make sure that we are creating future generations of well-prepared folks to go into the financial arena.
Andrea, obviously education is very close to your heart. Who does the coalition serve? What is its purpose as far as the communities that it wants to really impact?
Yeah. Well, I mean, really stepping into our mission, we support educators across subjects and grades and being able to build their own confidence in managing personal finance and retirement as also as a means to bring this topic into the classroom and to impact students. And we do that work together as a coalition, bringing together all of this expertise from partners that include nonprofits, financial institutions, schools, just leaders across our communities, because it really is a collective effort. And we're at a really crucial time in this work because California did pass a mandate to have financial education accessible to all high schoolers. And that initiative has the reach of over, I think it's 1.9 million high schoolers that will be reached each year through that. And that's a big goal to help all of those students. And I mean, for all the teachers listening, for all the community leaders listening, for the program managers, we know what that work takes. And really being able to lean into a coalition where we can to do that together is really powerful. And so at the heart of what we do is supporting teachers and feeling confident and capable in bringing this topic into their own lives and into the lives of their students.
And yes, the great question is, why is, quote, and I'm doing air quotes, can't see me, is financial literacy so important? Why do we need an organization such as the California Jumpstart Coalition to really fuel that fire and that education when historically, I know me, learned as I went?
I'll jump in first and anybody can jump in after that. A few things. First, we can do more together than anybody can do alone. And all of our partners, all of the board members that are on the California Jumpstart board do something in financial education in their day jobs, if you will. And so being able to come together and not try to replicate the work that any of us is doing, because we all do a pretty darn good job on our own, but being able to take that, as Andrea said, take that knowledge, take that expertise, be able to look at a bigger picture and say, how can we put our heads together? How can we put our efforts, our resources together and advocate for having that financial education in our schools? And certainly, what is something that is not being met? And that's where our Financial Foundation for Educators program came up. Of all of the partners, board members at California Jumpstart, nobody was really reaching out to that specific audience in that same way. And so we were able to come up with something that doesn't step on the toes of any of the other coalition members, but really shows the strength that we can have together.
I think, Tina, exactly what you said. Like, that's the deep why that drives all of our work, and being able to have that impact together, because it is like a ripple effect. And Chase, when you're saying like, why is this so important? It touches all of our lives, really. And it's also the topic that often is taught in silences, right? Like you're saying, you learned as you went. And I've been doing this work for a while. I've had a first grader walk into a workshop and say she's bad at money. Because we start that relationship young, between the ages of 3 to 7, and then those stories carry with us throughout life. I've been to state leader meetings and heard state leaders talk about their money mistakes with that shame hanging in the air. This is like, it's a topic that's emotional, and it's also just so crucial to being able to reach our goals in life and to really feel like we're thriving. And so we want to equip our students with those skills so that when they step out into the world, they don't feel like they're learning the rules to the game without having the instruction. And I think that's what many of us felt like. I know for me, I was the first one in my family to go to a 4-year university. And so when you say learning as you go, there were a lot of missteps along the way, and things that, that I learned in conversations with others and finding those money buddies. And we want our students and our teachers to have those money buddies early and often. And I think, like, for any of us on the board, tapping into that why, like, you'll hear that carry across the work. We want others to not feel alone, to not feel like they're wrong, and to know that there's things that they can do and resources to bring to bear to take action on their financial lives and goals.
So true. Doesn't matter where you are in life, how successful, again, air quotes, you're going to see this a lot, how successful you are. We all make giant mistakes along the way. And I think we all know that money can be such an individual thing, and it also can be something that we are afraid to ask questions. We might be afraid to let people know what we don't know. And I think that is a huge part of this. And I mentioned earlier that I love, Abby, the name of your foundation. I think because there is a kind of a gap and a misunderstanding on these different terms that we have, like between financial education and financial literacy and financial capability, financial empowerment. There's all these terms, and a lot of us want to, financial literacy is what most people Google, right? That's what they're looking into when they want to find this thing. But what is the terms that we believe are most beneficial to what we are trying to do as a coalition?
Financial literacy, well, that kind of implies that an illiteracy in people, and we definitely don't ever want to make anyone feel shame or bad or dumb or anything like that. And we want to use more expansive terms because it's about more than just knowledge, right? It's about applying skills. It's about actually doing things and setting goals and reaching and having accomplishments when it comes to money and finances. So it's not just about gaining the knowledge, because we know you can gain knowledge and not actually do anything with it. So, I mean, diets are a big proof of that, right? We all know what we're supposed to do, but we don't actually always do it. So it's the same thing when it comes to money. We really need to be able to use terms that have a broader reach, not just for youth, but for everyone as well.
I think something that came to mind is trying to help people understand that it's better to be proactive than reactive. And it's hard to be proactive if you don't know what you're doing, right? So much of personal finance is reactive, which is what gets us in trouble. Let's talk a little bit about the structure of the coalition. And Tina, I think that this is probably somewhere that you can really take the lead on. How is it structured? And when they're looking for community members and they're looking for board members, what capabilities are we looking for?
That's a great question. We are coalition, so our board is made up of, I think our bylaws allow for about 25 board members. And we try to be very diverse in our board membership as far as a lot of things. It's important to have gender diversity, age diversity, and all those things. And we also want to have diversity of the areas that people work from. For example, I work for a nonprofit. Abby does as well. Andrea has her own company. We've got teachers, having educators and people who work in the education field is very important. Folks that work in state government, different providers of financial education. So we really do try to have a broad spectrum of people who have an interest in seeing financial education, financial empowerment be represented in our coalition. And we have a board, and then we have partners. And that's something that we've actually spent the last year or so working on, that definition. And what does it mean to be a partner? Do you have to be on the board to be a partner? And the answer to that question is no, you can be a partner without being represented on our board. And from there, once we have our board members, we have 4 officer positions. So we have the chair, we have a vice chair, we have a secretary, and we have a treasurer. And then we have a handful of committees. So we have committee chairs. And I know we're going to get into the committee conversation in a bit. But really, the thing that I like to point out when we're chatting with folks about joining our board and being interested in leadership positions, we all have day jobs. This is a completely volunteer organization. We all recognize that. We think it's important that potential board members recognize that we recognize that. It's not a huge time commitment to be a board member, to be in a leadership position. Like I said, I run a nonprofit that has 2 people. There are 2 of us running our nonprofit. I'm a little bit busy. I don't have 10 hours or even 5 hours or 3 hours a week to devote to the California Jumpstart Coalition. But the time that I do devote to it, we want to make sure that it's effective and productive. And I think we've come to a pretty good place where we feel like we are doing those things in a productive and effective way without using up too much of people's resources.
One of the things that I think is really neat about the board is there's so many different opportunities to get involved. And that we really, like Tina's saying, that we support each person on the board and leaning into their strengths and interests and finding those opportunities to bring those to bear. And it's really neat. If you have if you have an hour a month, if you've got 4 hours a quarter, like we've got a spot, like we have some great things that we can still make happen. And so when we're talking about you can be on a committee, maybe if you don't have the time for a committee, you're just going to be a partner, but you're going to get more engaged with the newsletter. You're going to amplify the resources. There's multiple kind of levels of engagement. And all of this goes towards that deeper why of driving the work forward.
I have to say, as somebody that has been on the board and tries to help as much as I can, joining an organization can be a little overwhelming, especially if there's part of that organization that you don't understand very well. And I know when I came in, I understand educating and I understand personal finance backwards and forwards. But when it comes to learning or having to go out and talk to state government, that's something I'm very uncomfortable with. So does the organization take what your strengths are and use that? And they don't expect you to have to learn something that you're not comfortable with.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we do in our board member screening process, really, is finding out what their interests are. We share it. This is what we're all about. Here are the different ways that you can participate. Which one of these appeal to you? And so we're able to really make sure that there's a good match and that we are using people's best assets in the right way and the way that they want to use them.
So the executive committee obviously is one of the committees, and I would imagine that is the committee that people who have been in the organization for a little while will move up into. Can you explain what is the role of the executive committee, Tina?
The executive committee is the officers, basically, and we are responsible for ensuring that our mission is met, ensuring that the right people are in the right places. Twice a month, we hold a 20 to 40-minute call where we update each other on what's going on. We invite all of our committee chairs to come to any of those meetings. We do require them to come to, I want to say, one every 2 or 3 months, just to give an update on what's going on in their committees. The executive committee calls are open to any board member that wants to hear an update of what's going on. The board meets quarterly, so we have 4 meetings a year. So it's preparing for that, taking care of administrative things that come up. We do work with an organization that takes care of a lot of our back office activities for us, making sure that we're coordinated, and board outreach, trying to find new board members is always an ongoing activity. People come in and can be great board members, and then they move out of state or they change jobs and it doesn't make sense in their new role. So we do have reasonable turnover in the board, which is always great too, to make sure that we're always having fresh perspectives and making sure, again, that we're reaching out to every kind of corner of the financial education world.
Okay, so there obviously are other committees. Abby, give us an idea of what other committees that people can fit in and what their functions might be, and in your expertise, the education and scholarship arena.
Yeah, we have a number of committees, but I'm most familiar with the Education Committee, which I chair. And then we also have Scholarship Committee, which we can talk about providing scholarships for educators to be able to attend a national training conference event for personal finance. So that's really exciting. But suffice it to say, there are opportunities for a lot of people to get involved. Oh, we do have an advocacy committee that participates in some of the legislative things that we're trying to advance here in the state. So a wide range of opportunities to get involved, whatever your skills and interests are.
Teachers seem to be a major focus of the coalition. Obviously, we want to get to youth. We want to get to the people that are the future of our society, the future of our state. Why is it that we do these programs to work with teachers when they already are teaching courses and other aspects of education?
That's a great question. And so I'll say more than a decade ago, National Jumpstart did a study in which they found that while almost all educators out there felt their students needed to receive personal finance education, only 12% of them actually felt qualified to personally teach it. So the idea behind our outreach to educators is that each educator can have so much of an impact if they can teach and incorporate personal finance in their own classrooms, because they interact with so many students every year But if they don't feel qualified personally to do that, then they're going to hold back. So we want to actually educate them, help them feel more confident in their own personal finance knowledge and able to manage their own money well so that they will then pass that along to their students.
So well said. The idea of practicing what you preach is such a, it's an old school term, but it is so true in this. If you're not comfortable doing and living a certain way, how is it that you're going to go out and teach it? And I think that's what's so great about the coalition and what they do. So I guess that leads us to the FFE program, which is a crucial part of the organization. What is the FFE program, and how long has it been since it's been started?
The idea behind the FFE program is exactly that. It's a curriculum to help educators improve their own financial knowledge and skills. So it's really a course, a series of financial education workshops, if you will, or sessions to help them be more confident with their own personal finance skills, but then also encourage them and provide them resources to be able to integrate that into their classrooms and take that back to their students. It has been around, I'm not sure. I might have to call out to Tina for that answer.
The predecessor of the FFE program has been around for, at least 15 or so years, if not even a little bit longer than that. And it has evolved over time to what is now the FFE program.
What is your experience, and anybody can answer this, but what is the experience of, are teachers excited for something like this? Again, personal finance can be very personal, and people don't necessarily want to let off that I don't know much, especially when you're a teacher. You're well-educated just to be a teacher. So to admit or to get involved in something which they might perceive as not knowing something, that sometimes can be difficult to get people to buy into. What has been the reaction from the communities that we are serving with the FFE program?
I'll jump in first, because one thing that I think is pretty universal knowledge is that teachers are underpaid. So it's not as much of a taboo, I don't think, with that particular group to be able to say, look, we're trying to make ends meet here on not the best salary in the world. And the FFE actually brings in somebody from the CalPERS, I believe, is the retirement program for teachers. So there's always a guest speaker from that organization that talks them through their retirement options. And in addition to all of the other budgeting and saving and investments and all of those other topics that we cover. But in my experience at the FFEs that I have been to, the teachers are thrilled with the information, and they're very open and very willing to, participate in the interactive parts of the day. And I know, Andrea and Abby, you've both been to FFEs, so I'm assuming that you've had a similar experience.
Yeah. One of the things that I will say about teachers is our teachers are creative and they are amazing and they will innovate out of necessity. And so the FFEs are this amazing 2-day experience, whether it's virtual or in person, to come together in community to get resources. And it's free resources with expert help and support. And I think as an educator myself, and even in that first FFE that I went to far now years and years back, I was so excited to get that resource and that support and to have a space to have these real conversations about how do we bring this topic in? How do we make it developmentally appropriate for this grade? How do I make it exciting for my students? And this is a space to play and to have those conversations. And that's what we've seen in the FFE. One of my favorite moments, this was a few years back, but we had a teacher in the chat when we did a virtual session that she was like, I teach elementary school. I have the real little, like she had TK pre-K and then in kinder split day. And she's like, and I didn't know, I knew I needed this for myself. And she's like, but to be able to see that this is important for my kids and I can bring this in story time and I can have this in the dramatic play center. And it's just this space where you can imagine the possibilities. And I think for K through 12, that's what we see for the teachers. And it's what comes in the survey feedback too.
And there's a national FFE. And Abby, you mentioned earlier that the coalition supports certain teachers with scholarships to get there. Why is it important that they get to go to this national one when you're doing regionals as well?
First of all, for most teachers, we know they see the value of personal finance education for their students, but it can be difficult for them to find the time and to research all of the resources available to them. There's a ton of personal finance curricula and resources out there, but they have to weed through that. And that takes a lot of time to identify the right ones for their students and incorporate them into their lessons plans. And then there's also the issue of teachers having very limited or sometimes no budget funds to be able to do that. So the scholarship opportunity that California Jumpstart offers is just a lifeline. It gives them the opportunity to attend a national gathering of like-minded educators, learn from industry experts, be inspired by others in their field that are doing it, and then take tools, really cutting-edge tools that are available back to their classrooms that they can use right away and share with others in their district. That's another thing that we're hearing. Not only are they getting the benefit of all of the resources and education, but they're then sharing it with other educators from elementary all the way to high school across their district. So it's 10xing the value there.
I wish every workshop I ever did had as much interaction as the teachers get involved, because it really makes it more fun. Also, we run into the different cultural aspects and the different locales. California, obviously a very large state, lots of different areas. We're not all beaches and palm trees. So all these different communities learn differently. How does the coalition go about passing on this information when there can be such cultural barriers?
Yeah, that's the first thought that comes to mind. And I think this is part of when we say it takes a community, right? And this is also why we ground our work in supporting and uplifting educators, because our educators know our kids. So that's really, being able to support them with the tools and resources. When I talked about that teacher bringing it into their littles, she's thinking about what's developmentally appropriate. We've had other teachers where they're like, "Ooh, I need my resources in Spanish and English, and also I'm doing a family night because this is going to be multi-generational." I've had another teacher that's, "My kids are getting ready to go to college and no one else in their family has had that." As a kid that was in that position where I was the first one to fill out a FAFSA, I was like, "Ooh, I know that experience." And so we have a coalition full of resources on our website. We curate resources from across all of our partners, all in that effort to support educators in being able to customize, to curate, to find that real-time resource for what their community and their students need. Because when you say finance is personal, yes, and it's also a continuum, right? So there's going to be different needs at different times. And I think when we say being culturally responsive and supportive, that really means meeting each of our students where they're at and supporting them and where they're headed. And who better to do that than the teachers that are already showing up and doing that in their classroom every day. And then when we have these experiences to support teachers and having the scholarship to go on a trip and to meet with other teachers doing that, that's where we also create these opportunities to scaffold a network so that we can talk about how do you have shared practices, how do you have shared strategies, all of that in this effort of like, it's not any of us as one individual, right, that's solving this problem. And that's also to what Abby was saying, it's not about financial illiteracy, right? Our kids can read money. They know they have these goals, but it's about bringing resources together, having these real conversations in the moments they're needed most, and making sure that our teachers feel supported in doing that.
I know that just in this 3-4 years that I have been a part of the organization, that there has been some really fun stories. Is there anything that stands out in your mind where a teacher has come back to you and given you a story, or what the impact has been for their community, their classroom?
We give the teachers a chance and really encourage them to provide feedback afterwards to us, how they were able to use the information and apply it and come back afterwards. And so we get to hear some of these great stories. So one that really I remember struck me was one teacher in particular who mentioned that he gained tools that he uses not just for personal finance lessons, which he teaches, but also in math, in economics, and career development lessons as well. And he is doing all of that in his role in his school. So I just remember thinking that was so exciting because it wasn't just one niche. He was able to use those tools in a wide variety of capacities and reach even more students that way. Because it's not just one little piece, right? Finance affects so much of our lives. So that to me, that was exciting. And I felt, wow, that was money really well spent by our coalition.
And that's got to give you that energy, that little boost to say, this is why I'm here. And this is why I keep wanting to be a part of this organization. And yet every organization needs to let people know that we're out there and what we're doing and tooting our own horn. And I know that I get super excited every single month when I get the newsletter and I get those updates, because I unfortunately don't get to every meeting. Andrea, there is a communications committee, and I know the incredible work that goes into that. Give us a little bit of the idea of what is the background of the committee and what are you looking for? In a perfect world, how would that committee look?
So the communications committee is really special in that we get to amplify all of these stories. And I don't know if you can tell when I get so excited, right? Because I get to see these stories and the stats and the impact from across our partners, from the classroom. When Abby's talking about the scholarships, we have teachers sending in pictures of it in action in their classroom. It's really the opportunity for us to be able to amplify why this work matters, and also the tools to keep making it happen. So that monthly newsletter, we do want it to feel like a little gift that arrives each month. And it shares events from our partners. It shares links to resources that are freely available on our website and that are timely for different themes going on each month. It also will spotlight opportunities like the scholarship, which, by the way, that just went out in the newsletter. And if you all missed it, don't worry, you can sign up and get the most recent one. And then it also shares other opportunities when we have special projects happening. We did a website redesign a couple of years back as a board, and we contracted teachers to be a part of that project. And we reached those teachers by putting that out in the newsletter. So the newsletter is also an opportunity to see both small occasions and larger ways to get involved in the board as a teacher, as an organizational partner, and potentially as a board member. Hopefully those people listening are seeing, imagining the possibilities of how they could get involved. And a comms committee, we are small but mighty. So we are looking for new members that are interested in sharing stories and amplifying the message of financial education through the website, social media, and our newsletter. And much like the other committees, the time commitment to be a part of this is not huge. A lot of the work is done asynchronously, and it's just having emails come in, sharing those resources. And Tina mentioned we do have an organization that contracts with us and handles like back of house that actually organizes the template for the social media, the posting. So those aren't things that our board members do. We're just helping with the vision and bringing those resources and those ideas.
I just know from my own organization, and Tina, you mentioned you're an organization of two, and I understand how that feels sometimes. And we rely so heavily on volunteers. And I know that if it weren't for my volunteers that understood social media really well and helped teach me, we would be floundering. What are the typical ways that we get the information out there to the people that we're looking to serve?
Yeah, so the biggest way of doing that is sharing out our monthly newsletter that's available for signups on the website as well as through our link tree on socials. And then we do post regularly across social media. And to all those listening and interested in joining the communications committee, what you're able to do is you can spotlight, oh, I just saw this amazing resource that got posted. I'd like us to be able to share that. Or, oh my goodness, there's this really timely event that I saw one of our partner organizations is doing. Those are the kinds of things that our committee members are spotlighting and sharing. And then our partner organizations that may not be on the committee, and this is one of my favorite parts, they forward us their newsletters and they're like, hey, I'd love you to pull this chunk and share that out. Or, oh, can you amplify this message? We just had a student that created this amazing zine, or we just had one of our, and just to shout out and highlight Tina, her organization just had an amazing financial capability month and reached thousands of people. And so then we're able to share like, oh, look at what this event looks like in practice and the impact of that. So that's how we're sharing across these different media channels.
Is there a committee that it features partner engagement, or is that just something that happens organically? Because I know that my organization wouldn't get the word out if it weren't for the 5,000 other organizations that are knee deep in their communities. So how important is that partner engagement of the organization?
Partner engagement is hugely important, and it's something that we are working on getting better at. We do have partner committee chair and are actually looking for some members to join that committee. We've done some work. The last couple of years have been kind of building years, reorganizing, restructuring our committee structure and that sort of thing. And so the focus on the partners has really become an important thing that we're looking at. We want to make sure that, to Andrea's point, that we are really highlighting and sharing out all of the great work that's being done in our little corner of the world. So right now we're in the process of reaching out to all of our folks who are listed as partners on our website and making sure we have current contact information and encouraging them to send us their information so that we can share it out. So that's becoming a really big focus. And we would love folks who may not currently be partners, or maybe somebody who's from one of our partner organizations that would like to get more involved and help us amplify those partner relationships.
Advocacy is obviously a very large part. I know that when I was introduced to the organization, advocacy was what I really knew most about the California Jumpstart Coalition. I know that getting anything done in the state of California is a difficult task. Tina or Abby, can you explain where is it that the coalition's advocacy really is pushing, and which aspect are they pushing the hardest?
For our entire history, it's been about getting financial education required in the schools, and that has now happened. So starting in 2030, all high school seniors must graduate with a semester course in personal finance, which is amazing. And it's also step one, in our opinion, right? So yes, that's a huge victory. And it's something, again, for the entire existence of the California Jumpstart Coalition, that's something we've been pushing for. Now we have it. One semester in the 12th grade is too little too late. I mean, it's great. It's fantastic that they're going to have it. We need K through 12. Every single subject in school, starting in kindergarten, can incorporate personal finance. We know that kids care about money. Of course, kids care about money. They want to know how to get money, how to spend money. They like to spend money. There are so many ways that so many teachers of all different subjects can incorporate personal finance. And so that's our next big advocacy push, is really how do we take this huge victory that we've had at the state legislative level and not necessarily take a legislative route to it, but still advocate for bringing that education to all levels of students.
I would just wanted to add that we also want to be involved in the process of what is this legislation, what do the results look like? So we know the California Department of Education is working on developing standards around what's going to be taught in those semester-long personal finance courses and what makes a student pass that course and what is their testing involved. There's a lot of questions still about how that's going to roll out. And so California Jumpstart Coalition really wants to be a seat at that table and to help provide resources and provide advice to the Department of Education and helping them develop that, because all of us and our partners have been doing this for so long. And we do have some expertise in that process and seeing how that can be implemented. So we are here to support the Department of Education in making this legislation happen.
How does the coalition support the efforts of the different advocacy that is going on and the push towards personal finance in our schools?
If there are bills that support bringing more financial education into classrooms, we are there to provide support to that. Several years ago, I testified at the state legislature to one of the banking committee that was talking about a bill that would bring personal finance into classrooms. And so we're able to share the entire financial education providers network, if you will, perspective on why it's important to bring personal finance into the classrooms. What are the statistics? What's going on in the classrooms? Are there graduates showing better FICO scores? Those kinds of data. We have access to that kind of data and we can share that with legislators. So that's more of our focus in how we support that effort.
Thank you for that. I want to ask each of you, where do you see the coalition going? Where is it that you want to see it go, whether you're a part of that or you're handing it over to the future board members of the California Jumpstart Coalition? What is it you individually would like to see this organization go?
I would love to see the California Jumpstart Coalition be something that everyone has heard of because of the work that we do as a group. There are people who know about our different partners and what work our different partners do, but there's not a huge understanding necessarily that there's this great coalition where we all come together. And so that's one thing. The other thing, and the big carrot in the sky, is really, I want to see personal finance education, money smarts being taught in our schools, K through 12, that every student has an age-appropriate lesson that teaches them about money, how important money is, where it comes from, how to spend it. Money is changing all the time, and there have never been more options for students to make mistakes with money as there are now. We've got crypto, we've got Robinhood, and different online ways to invest and take risks that we're not teaching kids about those risks before they take them. And so I like to see us get to a point where we are helping push the needle on that.
I think similarly, I really have a dream that, kindergarten through 12th grade, all of our students have access to amazing financial education opportunities across subjects, and that our teachers feel supported in bringing those into the classroom. And I think we are at this amazing point where, when Tina says this is the first step of having the mandate, right? We just grow from here. And being able to imagine those possibilities. My dream for California Jumpstart is that we are that hub of being able to share innovative tools and resources, to showcase events happening across the state, across partners, and that every teacher knows that they can hop on California Jumpstart newsletter, the website, come out to an event and feel supported in that journey, and that their students can be supported in those resources and in those practices.
My vision for California Jumpstart really is to be a unifying factor for all of this wonderful work that's happening throughout our state. There are so many people that are advocating for different industries that want to invest in personal finance education throughout our state. And we can't all do it alone. The need is so great that no one player can do all of it. And so there's really a benefit and a strength in all of us coming together and providing these resources to meet all of the different needs. And quite honestly, sometimes I see different organizations, whether it be personal finance providers that are trying to be the Lone Ranger and that are not really working together. Or I just was contacted the other day by an individual who has a wonderful heart, who is coming up with her own personal finance curriculum to teach kids because she sees a need for this, not realizing that there's so much already out there and she doesn't need to recreate the wheel. So that's my vision, is that California Jumpstart will be able to unify all of these. We can all come together and work together to be able to provide such important resources across our state, and we're better together than we are separately.
If all the big hitters, the large corporations, banks, can all get together and worry less about whose name is at the top, and we come together with all our resources, we're going to be a much better state and a much better country when our kids are all educated and can make very good financial decisions. We're all going to be in a much better economy, wouldn't we think, if we're all educated enough to make these decisions? And I applaud all of you for doing that. What would you say, Tina, to somebody that's thinking about joining or is interested in tipping their toe into being a board member or committee member at the California Jumpstart Coalition?
First, they should send an email to info@cajumpstart.org and sign up for our newsletter on our website. And really, to be prepared to give a little bit of time to join a great group of people to help make a difference in the world. Really, when it comes down to it, that's what we're trying to do. And we're not asking for hours and hours and hours of time, but we're asking for a small amount of very dedicated time and to hang out with some fun people too.
It really is such an interesting cross of backgrounds and education. And who would have thought that economics could be really entertaining? Jim somehow does that. He makes it really, really fun. So there are such people. I've learned so much from all of the different people that are in this organization. The breadth of knowledge in this organization is second to none. And I want to thank all of you for being here today. Is there anything I left out? Anything that we want to get across that I didn't mention today?
I can't think of anything. I would just say, again, check us out, go to our website, send us a note. If you're a provider of financial education, you're interested in being a partner with us or potentially joining us on the board, or you just want to join a committee or learn more about some of the work that some of our partners are doing, reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
One thing that I would love to mention that we haven't said here is those students, the youth that we are impacting, they have a voice too. And I know that when we had some of the young people that were college students and joining, it was such an interesting perspective from their end. They're the ones that are learning and having to go into the real world that are not jaded yet and don't know by experience yet. How important is it that we have even young people who may not feel like they're experienced enough to join? How important is it for them to have a voice?
It's huge. These are the people who we're trying to serve to make sure that education is getting in their hands. And we have had a student advisor position on our board. That position is vacant at the moment. So again, anyone who's interested in that, we know what we want to share and we know what it means to us, but we're not the recipient of it. None of us is young enough to be the recipient of that anymore in that position. So yes, absolutely. Having educators, having students involved with us is vital. Thank you for asking that.
For young people that are getting involved for the communications committee, we've had high schoolers reach out and share, hey, we're going to be doing an after school event. Or we had a group of high schoolers that were doing a podcast on wellness and wanting to bring in financial fame that have reached out to ask for resources. And we are always beyond happy to share that and to connect board members, to connect program partners. So for all of our youth out there that are looking for ways to drive change in their community, of course, we want to support that. And we want you to be a part of this too.
Thank you so much, Tina, Abby, Andrea, for giving us a closer look at the heart of California Jumpstart, from mission to the people making it happen. For anyone listening who wants to get involved, learn more, or connect with us, just visit cajumpstart.org, or you can email us at info@cajumpstart.org. We hope this episode inspired you to join the movement toward a financially capable California. Thanks for listening, everybody.